Hello everyone. Let's welcome Georgi. He's a founder. He's also one of the very few Salesforce Certified Architect CTAs out there in the world. He is founder of Dubai Architect Community Group, and he works aggressively on Communication Cloud. So let's dive into a conversation with him and understand his journey. Hey Georgi, so thanks for joining us on your Salesforce Journey podcast today and taking our time. So first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Sanjeet. Look forward to the podcast. And I watched one of the episodes with Shibu recently, and he's a great guy, and it was good content. So look forward to this one.
Great, thanks. So, just to start with, you like to start with your journey into the ecosystem or probably the IT services or IT industry, right? How did you start into it? Was it by choice or was it accidental? And then how did you land up into Salesforce ecosystem and started your own organization eventually?
Yeah, so just a bit of history about me. So my name is Georgii Saveliev. I was born in Russia. My parents moved to the US when I was young, and I grew up in the US. And then my IT journey started when we got our first computer. I think it was like this old Mac where it was this was back in like the mid 90s. It was like an old Mac where it was the CRT monitor with a computer all in one, but predating iMacs, like the plastic ones. So I fell in love with that computer because there were a bunch of games available, and I just loved gaming on it. Then my parents bought a Windows PC, and I got into like PC gaming, and I got interested in like building computers, got interested in CPUs, graphics cards, all of that stuff. I built my first computer when I was, I think, 13 or 14, and I've been building computers ever since. And I think that's where my love for computers came from. And I think that got me into the IT space later on. And then when I entered university, I went to university at the University of Wisconsin. I started working at the IT help desk there. So I think this was the beginning of my CRM journey, even though back then I didn't know it. And I think I only realized that within the past like 5 years or so. But I was a service desk agent helping students, prospective students, faculty, et cetera, troubleshoot their computer issues. So if they need a password reset for their university account, if their computer isn't starting on, if they can't use their printer, et cetera. And as part of my job as a IT tech support agent, I was logging cases in the CRM system. This was an old system called Clarify, and then just before I left, we replaced it with another one. I don't remember the name, but I think that was kind of my like journey into CRM. So I was there for a while, and then my first job out of university at a corporation was with General Electric, specifically GE Healthcare. So GE is a big conglomerate with a bunch of different business units. I was working at the healthcare business unit. And there I did a rotational program. So over 2 years, I did a few different roles as like a BA, project manager in different pieces of the business. So around engineering, supply chain, sales, service. And I really, really enjoyed the sales rotation. And then when I finished this rotational program, I joined the Salesforce team full time. And on the sales rotation, we were doing Salesforce. So during the rotational program, I was working on just core sales service. I built my first VF page, and I was just impressed by like how easy it was, because in big corporations, it takes like 3 months to get access to access to the system. And they were able to just spin up a sandbox for me, and I was able to start building a VF page in like 30 minutes. And I was just like, wow, this is really cool. I love how easy it is, how fast it is, how accessible it is. And I think that was my intro to Salesforce. And then I think later on, I realized, I think my experience as an IT support agent working on a CRM translated pretty well to actually, being an architect or analyst or developer or whatever on a CRM, because I saw it from the user point of view. Now I'm implementing it from like a developer or architect point of view. Then I transitioned, or as part of that role, we were implementing Aptus. It's a CPQ product that's now known as Conga CPQ. And I kind of fell in love with CPQ as part of that. We were doing a big global implementation. I was traveling a lot. And then as part of that, I realized that I really loved to travel, because I didn't really travel when I was younger. I wanted to see the world, and then that brought me to my international journey. So I relocated back to Moscow for a bit, then met a woman who is now my wife. We relocated to Amsterdam. I joined Velocity, and then that started the most recent part of my journey. So With Velocity, Velocity is a industry cloud platform that includes the CPQ, so my CPQ background was useful there. And then long story short, Velocity got acquired by Salesforce. I relocated to Singapore after that, was there for a couple of years, did my CTA, then decided to do my own thing with Stratus Carta, and relocated to Dubai to start the company. And 2 years later, here we are. So that's a bit about me, a bit about my background and how I got into the world of Salesforce, industry cloud, CPQ.
Great, thanks for sharing the detailed overview of, how you started and your interest when you were like 13 and, carrying the passion along. So by the way, you have traveled quite a bit, right? You have not traveled, I would say you have spent years in separate continents. So which one is your, the most favorite experience or memorable one? I am sure pretty much each would have their own memorable parts, but what is the one memory that you can recall right now?
I would say probably my most favorite travel of everything was actually Brazil. So when I was at GE, we had a Brazilian, there was a big Brazilian part of the business. I did one of my rotations supporting that part of the business, specifically in supply chain. So I spent some time down there, made a bunch of friends, and then visited Brazil, I don't know, probably like 10 times total. So I spent, I don't know, 6 to 9 months there. I really loved it in terms of how warm the people are. The country itself, I think has some challenges around like the economy, things like that, but you just feel the warmth of the people. I would meet friends of my friends, and after 30 minutes, it felt like I knew them for 10 years, and we were, longtime friends. It's just amazing how warm everyone is and how great it is. And I feel like it's a place with a lot of potential, and is still kind of developing and realizing that potential. So yeah, that was my favorite. If I had the option to spend some more time there, I absolutely would. I just love the people, and I feel like in our lifetimes, we'll see some really great things come out of Brazil.
Great, yeah, I think I've heard this quite a bit, people who travel to Brazil, that it's really hospitable and really nice, right? People out there are really nice. Great.
Absolutely.
Talking about your learning experience, because it has almost been I think maybe 12 odd years since you have been into the Salesforce ecosystem. Am I right? Great.
Yeah, so I like first touched Salesforce in I think mid 2013. So but then I like was working on some other platforms for a few months. So it's been like 10 years total, but first touched it about 11 years or so ago.
So you have already done 40 certifications, you are a CTA, right? So that was a pretty rapid learning pace. So what tips would you like to give to somebody, who is kind of starting out or wants to, be a CTA one day, or just, engage into newer things that are coming up? Because as you know, right, Salesforce has probably in a year, they have every quarter, like they have different things coming up. So how do you keep up with the pace of learning and stuff like that?
Yeah, so let me give a bit of background around my certification journey. So I think I got my first cert in something like January of 2015. So it was a couple of years after I first touched Salesforce, and like 6 months or so after I was working on it extensively. At that time, I was really focusing on the admin cert, and I remember studying pretty hardcore for like 2 or 3 months on it. And nowadays, usually when I do certs, I just hardcore study for maybe a week or so, like really cram, take notes, spend a lot of time, then sit for the cert. So it's just funny how you transition from like spending a huge amount of time previously and you're super stressed about it to nowadays I'm like, hey, here's a new product. I don't really know about it. Let's spend some time learning about it. If I pass, great. If I don't pass, whatever, at least I'll learn something about it. I can take it again. So it's just funny how you kind of like transition from the way you look at them. I would say I think a lot of people are chasing certs in terms of a way of boosting your resume. And it's more of like a check the box exercise. Like I need to get 10 certs so that I can get this great, nice paying job. I would recommend not approaching that. I mean, for sure, it does help you from an interview point of view. And when you're looking for new jobs, to have you stand out from other candidates, to show that you have good knowledge. But I would really approach it as, I want to take this cert because I want to really understand this topic. I want to be, I wouldn't say I want to be an expert in the topic, but I want to have like a baseline of knowledge that I would be comfortable, jumping into my first project on that topic or talking to a customer about that topic. So that's kind of how I approach them now. Like I I have the Data Cloud, the most recent Data Cloud, I think Data Cloud Consultant cert on my backlog that I haven't done yet. I really haven't worked with Data Cloud, and I'm approaching it as a way of getting a baseline knowledge of Data Cloud. When I pass it, that doesn't mean that I'll be an expert in it in any way. It just means I'll understand what it is, understand how it can fit in with an architecture, but then other people will be the expert on it. I would then need to spend, a year or two really working with it hands-on to become an expert. So don't chase the number, really use it as a way of having some kind of like measurable mark that you have some kind of baseline of knowledge. And then based on that, it will pay off in other ways. Once you have that baseline of knowledge, you'll be able to go to an interview. The interviewer will ask you, hey, I see you have JavaScript Developer 1. Can you tell me something about it? Tell me something about your JavaScript skills. If you actually understand the topic, you'll be able to answer that question. If you're just cramming or just using mock questions, not really understanding the topic, you won't be able to answer those questions. And even worse, if you do get the job, you won't be able to actually do what's expected of you. So definitely treat it as a way to get knowledge. Don't just treat it as like a check the box exercise to collect as many as you can.
Yeah, I think because the more the certs and lesser the knowledge you have, it is kind of the opposite, right? You won't get the job, right?
Yeah, for me, the two things that are like really a red flag is if someone has been in the ecosystem for a long time, like 5 years plus, and then doesn't have any certs. To me, that means that either you really aren't actually working in the ecosystem, but you're saying that you are, or you aren't willing to invest the 1 hour or 2 hours to take the admin cert. You aren't willing to invest that time out of your weekend or like in the evening to take a baseline cert. After 5 years on the platform, I think most people would easily be able to pass like admin, platform, app builder, dev one without studying. So if you're not willing to invest an hour or two of your personal time when you're 5 years in your career in this platform, that's not a good sign for me. But then the opposite is also true. If you have 20 certs and you have 3 months of experience, to me, that means that either you've been studying like 5 years and treating, Salesforce as your like university education, then searching for a job, which is okay. But I think for most people, it means that, you're cheating using exam dumps. Like, please don't do that. That hurts everyone in the ecosystem and especially you. So please don't do that. But yeah, to me, those are both red flags. If you like don't have any certs and you've been in the ecosystem for a long time, or have a bunch and have barely been in the ecosystem.
I know, I completely agree with you because these kind of terms, right? They kind of help you pass the exam, but you don't have any kind of logical or practical knowledge, and you like fail when you interact with the client. In both of us, right? In our case, we have to interact with the client, right? And we have to tell them, hey, that this particular marketing cloud fits or not, maybe data cloud is useful or not. If we are just passing the certifications by dumps, then we won't be able to add value, and ultimately everybody would know. Right? So
yeah, it's like the equivalent of like bribing someone to get your driver's license, then you've never driven a car, but then you expect to go on the highway in rush hour and not kill someone or yourself. With Salesforce, you're not going to kill anyone. You don't have that at risk, but it's kind of the same idea. So, treat it the same way. It's just a measurable way for you to measure your knowledge. And the cert that you get is just a endorphin boost that you get at the end that you can celebrate, and something measurable.
Yeah, no, for sure. So how do you plan your learning? Are you pretty structured, or you go with the flow? Like, there are two types of people, right? One are who are pretty structured. I have the 6-yearly plan or 5-yearly plan or yearly plan, quarterly plan and stuff like that. Or you just go with the flow, whatever you feel is right. You just kind of pick that as an expert.
So when I was studying for the admin exam, I was very structured around it. I was like, I think I bought this preparation course on Certified on Demand, if I recall correctly. And there it was really structured, broken down into the exam objectives and then like subtopics for each of the topics. For each one, I would study in detail, go into a demo org, implement it, read all of the help docs about it, take notes, etc. I think if you're earlier in your career or in your Salesforce knowledge, that's the best way to go. Nowadays, the way I approach it is I look at the exam objectives. I reflect on my knowledge of that topic, and then I research the delta. So for like, I'm trying to think what would be a good example recently. I took one of the marketing cloud exams a couple of years ago, and I took some of the previous marketing cloud exams, so I had some baseline of knowledge. So I was like looking through the exam objectives. I don't remember how many there were, but maybe like 5 or 10. I was like, okay, these 3 I feel pretty comfortable with. These 2 I have no idea. So on those 2, then I spent some time reading the help docs, looking through videos, et cetera, and filling my knowledge gaps. So I would approach it in 2 different ways depending on how much background you have.
Got it. Perfect. Thanks for sharing those insights. And how did you end up as an entrepreneur? What kind of boosted you? You had a pretty good career, right, out of Salesforce and in Singapore. What made you move into entrepreneurship and start your own organization into Velocity and Communication Cloud? You also work in Communication Cloud, right?
Yeah. So when I joined Velocity in 2018, I was working purely on the communications cloud customers across Europe and EMEA. Then when I relocated to Singapore, I was supporting a couple customers across APAC, also with communications cloud. So really deep communications cloud knowledge. And what I saw is this is a very specialized niche where there are very few people that really understand it in detail. And just a whole lot of projects that need a lot of support. I was the senior program architect in Salesforce, and the great thing about that is you're typically like full-time allocated to a single customer, or maybe your time is split between 2 customers, but in the end, you're impacting like 1 project or maybe 2 projects. What I was thinking is, I have a lot of knowledge. I know a lot of people with a lot of knowledge that could contribute and make a big impact to a lot more projects than 1 or 2 for each of us. I think we could impact a whole pool of projects, like 10, 20, 50 projects, something like that. We can multiply our impact on the ecosystem and really make a big difference. So I thought the best way of doing that would be to start my own company, find some like-minded people, and help as many projects as we can. So that's that was kind of the idea of how we got started. And so far it seems to be working more or less okay. So I can't complain. But yeah, it is quite scary because with a full-time job, especially at Salesforce, you have quite a lot of security. When you're an entrepreneur, you have exactly the opposite. It's up to you to determine your future. No one is going to find you a project. You have to find your own projects, and you'll have to work hard to find it. So it's not an easy journey, but in retrospect, I feel like in the past 2 years, I think I've grown. Maybe the only comparison is when I was doing CTA. I feel like I grew a lot as a professional during CTA, but except for that, I think this is like the biggest personal and career growth that I've had.
For sure. For me, it has been like 2.5 years since I dived into the entrepreneurship full time, and has been a crazy ride. Some days you are really energized when you go back home and you say, okay, I've done this today, right? And then the other day, even the next day, right, there's some escalation, or maybe some other things happening, and some employees not keeping well. There's some sort of issue, right? So many issues. So and you feel, why did I even start it, right? So it is very complex, but I think the learning that you get as an entrepreneur is like priceless, and nobody can teach you that, I would say.
Absolutely. And in the worst case, if it doesn't work out, you can always, you'll build really good skills. You can always go back to a full-time job somewhere. So really the risk is the opportunity cost of, I don't know, potentially the black mark on your resume if you don't do well. But I don't know. I feel like it's almost all upside. So if you can handle the stress and handle the risk, definitely go for it. If you're thinking about it, go for it.
Yeah, and if you feel that you don't want to handle the stress, don't be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, yeah, it's very stressful. Like when things are successful, it's great. You're on the top of the world. You feel like you're really killing it, and the endorphins you get are amazing. It's like after you go to the gym for a long time, work out, feel awesome. But then like you said, the next day you'll have some escalation or some issue, and you'll feel exactly the opposite. And this roller coaster of like feeling amazing one day, terrible the next day, amazing the next day. It's not easy.
Yeah. And what happens with me sometimes is, suppose I go on an event or I meet somebody and they're like, hey, dude, you're at such a young age, you're starting your own organization, and great to see you. We are very inspired by you. And I'm like, okay, but you don't know what I'm dealing through today. So even the same
Yeah.
hour, right? You have multiple moments when somebody is praising you and saying, hey, we are inspired by you and we look up to you. That is great, right? We are inspiring people, at least. Maybe even if 1 or 2 become an entrepreneur of it, that is the impact that we are giving, right? But I know what I'm going through in my head, right? Hey, okay, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. So there's like, I think it takes a toll on your personal life at times, but I think it is rewarding in a long run, I would say.
Yeah, and I think beyond the stress, for me the hardest part is you can't turn off. When I go on vacation, I still need to run the business. I need to deal with escalations. I need to, pay people's salaries or whatever. There's no fully off. You can be like minimally available, but you always have to be there. For me, that's the hardest part. I would just love to be like fully off, not check emails for 1 week, but that's just
That
not
is
gonna
something you
happen.
used to do when you were working, when you were in a job.
I mean, when I was on vacation, when I was working for like Salesforce Velocity, I would typically check my email each morning to just see if there are any fires. But unless there was, unless it's like a prod issue and I know that no one will be able to solve it without me, or if I jump in, spend 30 minutes or an hour or two, that will make it go a lot faster, then I'll jump on.
Got
So I still wouldn't fully turn off, but much closer to fully turning off than I can now. Now you have to be pretty involved.
Yeah, and you need to check your emails probably 3, 4 times a day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you can't go on
Yeah,
PTOs.
yeah,
PTOs are
yeah,
out of the picture now.
yeah. And that reminds me of one other thing of how you said you were inspiring people. After I did CTA, I did a presentation for the Singapore user group, and after the presentation, it was Q&A, and people were asking some questions related to the topic I was presenting on. I think it was about Omni Studio. And then at the very end, there was one guy that was like, I have a completely off topic, not even a question, but a comment. I just wanted to tell you this. He said that so when I passed CTA, I printed out like a 1 meter long poster of the CTA exam, and then I took a picture on a roof in flip flops, and people just loved that picture, especially the flip flops aspect to it. So he said that he printed out that picture and he has it like on his desk right next to his monitor, and he said, I just want you to know that like I printed out your picture. I have it on my desk next to my monitor just to inspire me to, go for CTA when I'm, feeling low on energy or I have a bad mock exam or whatever. I like look to that and say, this is what I'm working towards. And you really inspired me. And I was like, this is the most amazing feeling ever, even better than the feeling of actually getting CTA and being able to celebrate that feeling when someone you don't know, a completely random person, just says, hey, you inspired me. That feeling is just absolutely amazing. And for me, that happened with CTA, but hopefully, that will happen in other aspects of your life, from personal perspective, from a career perspective. So yeah, just that feeling is really amazing.
Yeah, I think that feeling is priceless.
Yeah.
And that's good to know. So what do you think of the future Salesforce trends? A lot of things coming out, like we spoke yesterday also on the AI topic, right? So just to give a idea of the people who are viewing this, sorry. What
Mm-hmm.
do you think of the future? Where is Salesforce heading to?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, the answer to that from anyone nowadays would be AI. So if you've been in the ecosystem for a while, you see that like every year, every 2 years, there's always some new hype of the latest product or latest feature. Back when Velocity was acquired, there was a lot of hype around like industry clouds and Salesforce industries. I don't even remember when it was, but like before or after that, there was some big hype around like blockchain.
And
I remember when I first entered the ecosystem, there was a lot of hype around Chatter. It was like Facebook for enterprises and Salesforce One. Salesforce One was going to like completely revolutionize things. And nowadays, when we think of Chatter, you just use it. You don't even think about it if you're like a Salesforce user. You think
yeah,
of a mobile app, it's just like there's going to be a mobile app. That's an assumption. You don't even think about it. So I feel like AI is really at the beginning of the hype train right now. The use cases are there, but pretty basic. So it's things like being able to, as a service agent, automatically do a draft response to a chat or an email or whatever. And as a previous IT help desk agent, actually, that would have saved me a lot of time. So I would have loved that as a user. So I see the value there, but I think people have the false expectation that it's really doing some super complicated use cases. So like in the communications cloud world space, it would be great to be able to have Einstein like look at all of your recent orders in the past year or two, look at how much margin was applied by, or how much discount was applied by your sales reps, and then like redo your whole pricing based on all of that data. that data is there, it's definitely achievable, but Einstein doesn't do that today. Another use case that would be great is, a customer contacts a sales rep, and then Einstein suggests, hey, based on everything they've purchased, how old their services are, their cases, the news, etc., why don't you propose them this product? And by the way, here's a quote to give them this product. Like, that would be an amazing use case, but it's not there today. So
I think it will take
I think
a couple of years, right, to get down there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a lot of promise. I think there are some use cases, but they're quite basic. So what I'm really interested in to see is, will there be some new topic that's really hyped up that kind of steals the thunder from AI and steals the focus away from AI, or will AI be a continued thing? Like, 5 years from now, if we have another conversation looking back at now, will it be like the same thing as chatter in mobile, where it's like you just assume that that's there, it's you use it every day, you don't even think about it, or will it just be something that's kind of drops by the wayside and was forgotten, like blockchain? Nothing really came out of that. So let's see what the future holds. I don't know.
Let's see. Perfect. Thanks for the time. And any last tips you would like to give to anybody who's looking into this and entering the ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, like thinking back on when I started my career, what I wish some people told me was, step out of your comfort zone as much as possible. I mean, I had people tell me this when I was early in my career, but I feel like it didn't really, I didn't really listen to it properly, and it didn't really, the importance of it didn't really strike me until recently. But step out of your comfort zone as much as possible. When I was doing CTA, it was extremely uncomfortable because I would get in front of CTAs, do mock exams, make a fool of myself because I, didn't know the topic. Nowadays, as an entrepreneur, I have to stand in front of CIOs, very senior people, justify what my company does, how we can add value. That was also extremely uncomfortable the first few times I did it. But the more you do it, the less uncomfortable it becomes, the easier it becomes, the better at it you become. So if there's anything, just step out of your comfort zone as much as you can. Another thing is, we were talking about kind of my international experience of relocating different places. I would highly recommend, if you can, relocate to a different country, or if not, at least a different city, different state, whatever. That I think that also ties into stepping out of your comfort zone. If you move to another country, you have another language, another way things work. It really grows you as a person. A different way business works, a different way they would use Salesforce, different use cases, etc. It really grows you as a person. Yeah, I would say that those are the two key things.
Great. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was a great conversation, and look forward to the next episode.
Thanks, man.